Hey, Hugh, how you doing, man?
Not bad, Greg. How are you tonight?
This is the big series we were talking about. Actually, we were going to make it one video, and we decided to break it down into three parts because there's just so much information here. So this is part one of the big reveal. We're going to see just how big the con goes. Of course, I don't know exactly what you're going to talk about. I've got my notepad so I can jot down some notes, and maybe anybody else might want to. I think it helps to follow along if you jot notes down. But also, I'll be asking questions so that hopefully, if I can understand exactly what this big reveal is going to be about, then and of course, the biggest part of it's going to be on that third video, but we're going to lead up to it from now to then. And if I can get it, hopefully the audience can get it as well. Right on the board behind me, just to start us off, is a little bit of gematria here from the gematrinator.com website, and we put in your name, Hugh Squire, and then we put in Tom Garrett, who was the White House CBS correspondent that you fully well know, who helped kill one of your wives. And the gematria is exactly the same. What are the chances of this?
He was
133,
sending me
3.
computers right out of the White House from the FBI that most likely were Clinton's emails
Yeah, exactly. So
as they murdered my attorney, who was filing my wife's murder charges.
yeah. See,
That's
this
and
is
that's
this is
CBS, and CBS covered Kennedy's murder and covered the JFK archives and court, and and it's all lies. It's all lies, and I'm the truth of Kennedy's murder.
this is just a little piece of what you're going to hear tonight, folks, because this is how big that your government can do these kinds of cover-ups and cons on people and on the population and what they can do to people. Um, Straight from the White House. Here's a guy working at the White House doing this, and look how his gematria. It shows that they planned this by a code. I mean, all four numbers and different ciphers all match up. Now, this is the name of Victoria, was the name of Hugh's wife at 9/11 when 9/11 happened, and notice her name equals in 119 in gematria.
She was murdered. She was
Yeah,
dismembered, raped, and murdered by the government to
yeah.
hide my truth of 9/11. Period.
And she was right there on 9/11. I mean, her number's right there on 9/11. She was there, or she was with you on 9/11. That's crazy. Then we have the names of your four wives together: Nancy, Karen, Terry, and Victoria equals 118, which, according to the rules of gematria, one off is the same as 119. But we've also had a whole lot of talk about the number
And
118
all those
recently
are
as
all
well.
four of my wives. They were all dismembered, raped, and murdered by the government
Yeah, think about how
as
amazing.
my name and trademark, and all my entertainment contracts were stolen in every country on earth, 244 countries.
Right.
Nowadays, it's
And to
240.
clarify for those dingbats who are going to come up and say, "What do you mean he had four what?" No, not at the same time, folks. Okay.
No, this is
I want to
over a
clarify.
35-year period. Every 7 years, they murdered my fiance or my wife.
And just like this is a code here behind me, they murdered them on holidays and on your birthday, showing very plainly that they were doing this by a code.
Yeah, Karen was murdered Christmas Day, 1991. Terry was murdered on my birthday, uh, 2003, and Victoria was murdered Halloween Day, 2011. Well, Obama was president, and Tom Garrett was sending me FBI computers with Clinton's emails on them. Nancy was murdered as they let the Bundys out of jail, and the same FBI that murdered Karen, Terry, and Victoria and turned a blind eye let the Bundys out of jail for Donald Trump. It's all interrelated, and it's all crime coming from the Osborne family, who heads the sex crime division at the FBI and more than likely at the CIA. I don't know what the CIA inside looks like, but the very governors' families who kidnapped me run your CIA, and FBI, and have spent their lives trying to murder me, set me up for drug deals. They've accused me of robbing banks. They accused me of Jimmy Hoffa's murder. And I was with every Kennedy as they were murdered, four of them. And then you just had Sharice Kennedy raped, and they say she committed suicide. I don't think that when a little girl is raped and she kills herself, I think that's murder. I think the person that raped her and whatever they did to her to torture her, to rape her, is guilty of murder.
Sure, and she had admitted even publicly that she had been raped as a kid as well.
That's very hard to do. I'm doing that myself, Greg. And you know how hard it is? I'm 66, and it's hard for me to sit here week after week and say, I had grown men sticking their things in my orifices as a child. Do you think I want to say these things? And I'm not here for money. I'm here to say truth.
Right.
And I'm not suicidal. I'm doing this because these people, I forgave them. And I walked on. And when I was 4 years old, I escaped and I walked on. And then they come back and murdered little kids all around me, murdered Jimmy Hoffa, accused me of that. And then they murdered 4 of my wives, and they still to this day continue to murder kids. I've had enough. It's time that the country and everybody around me knows the truth of this country. And this country is not ruling the world.
Yeah, we want to get this message out because this big con that you're talking about has got to get exposed. We've got to know exactly what is causing all this to happen and what's fueling it and what we can do about it.
That's absolutely correct. And this country has become so corrupt. Look at the it's just like a comedy watching Donald Trump in the White House and the Senate and Graham and the Judicial Committee. It's a joke. This country has become a joke. And until people realize I'm the truth of the Kennedy murders, I'm the truth of Oakland County, I'm the truth of Hoffa, and they put it all together in a logical sequence, you don't even know who to vote for. And everybody in the Senate and the House and the Judicial Committee in the House and your presidents, all of them are lying to you. And the media is so far from the truth. It's just, it makes me just want to, I don't know, it makes me want to puke. I don't know how else to say it. CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS, they've murdered my wives, and none of my wives got an obituary. And L. Brooks Patterson, they said what a hero he is, and he covered up my truth for 60 years, and he never solved a single murder. How is that a hero? He gets $20 million a year of taxpayer monies, and he solved absolutely nothing. And then he's replaced by Coulter, the gay guy Coulter in Oakland County, that gay prick that replaced him, and I'll call him a prick because they know I'm the truth of Oakland County. That's why they gave you Dr. Nasser. What's worse, Greg? Little kids being dismembered and raped and thrown on my properties for 20 years, or a doctor at a university looking at an athlete's vagina. Yeah. I mean, and that's how they cover me up. Mm-hmm. And I'm tired of it. I was playing at MSU on the football field all the way back in the 60s. None of those people in Dr. Nasser's stories, that story wouldn't even exist if I hadn't gone back and attempted to talk to L. Brooks Patterson again, who refuses to take reports from me, along with the FBI, the very FBI that kidnapped me at 4 in 1957.
Yeah, and if I understand right, some really amazing things happened on your trail going towards Michigan.
It's just ridiculous.
Las Vegas happened. The Las Vegas shooting happened.
I had women in the military stop and call police and say I tried to hurt them all the way in every state I went through. Just complete baloney stories. Yeah, and then they gave you this Dr. Nasser, and you got the Me Too movement, and I haven't had a sexual relationship with anybody since my wife was murdered in 2011, and for people to try and tell me I'm trying to hurt women or do this or that, it's the cover up.
Mm-hmm. That's obviously they monitor you, and for those of us that are smart enough to understand stuff like this, we can see the patterns, we can see the coding, we can see that they're doing this on purpose, and it just verifies everything that you're saying.
Yeah, your calculator works, and for me it's a no-brainer. 9/11 didn't even exist when I created Bottom Line and became a publisher at ASCAP. The Twin Towers weren't even built yet. When Kennedy was murdered, he was at the Trade Center in Texas. The Twin Towers didn't exist. And then all my baby pictures have a 2, and they were all taken by Mr. Towers, and not any Towers, Dell Towers and Craig Towers, and Huey Lewis and Billy Squier, his name is really Craig, and he came from Germany. He's not even an American.
And even the Twin Towers themselves have some amazing part to play in this, even before 9/11, because they were built April 4, 73, which is 4 like kill equals 44, and you had 4 wives and were abducted at 4 years old. 4 wives slash fiancés killed and abducted at 4. And I think this is where they're getting the gematria from. So when we are using this gematria calculator, I think they're tying a lot of these numbers to your life.
Well, I know they are because that's why it works. They're using me for a model, and all media is geared to discredit my truth. They give you movie after movie and book after book of who killed Hoffa, but I'm not in any of them. Yet the FBI detained me in my driveway 12 hours after he disappeared, and he was with my mother-in-law at the Sly Fox. But Fox News never interviews me. CBS never interviews me. Oh, I'm not in Miller or Toko's books, but Toko and Miller both worked for me and the Carousel parking lot. I rented a factory from the Carousel. Jack Ruby owned the Carousel. And then they give you all these. I was the guy that owned I owned the business next door to the Carousel. I rented it from Jack Ruby, the Carousel. And I don't exist and nobody interviews me? Come on now. And all of this it's just one cover up after another. And you got Bill O'Reilly writing books like The Truth of Kennedy, but I'm not in it. The Truth of Oakland County Killers, but I'm not in it. The Truth of Hoffa, but I'm not in it. How is that possible if I employed Tony Toko and he wrote a book and said he murdered Hoffa? How is it possible that I'm not in it, his employer? How can Alex Jones interview Ted Nugent but not interview his publisher? How can John B. Wells interview Sophia Stewart, the author, but not his publisher? And I'm Schwarzenegger's cousin. You know, how can everybody not interview me?
With this much information, as we've said in the past, they should be beating a path to your door. This should be.
Well, Fuller is my family is the Fuller Corporation in Battle Creek, Michigan. We built and put a Fuller transmission in every semi on Earth. It's a no-brainer. I knew Jimmy Hoffa. Mm-hmm. I was in his union. It's a no-brainer. But I'm not interviewed. Do you know I moved out here on the West Coast, and the man that was in jail was Mr. Hoffa. When he was put in jail, he came right up to me and asked me who murdered Jimmy Hoffa. And I told him. And he walked away and he believed my story. And he spent all that time Jimmy Hoffa was in jail. He was in jail with him. Isn't that interesting? So I have a guy put in jail for driving an illegal load across the country. And he didn't even know it was illegal because it was sealed. And he spent all his time in jail with Jimmy Hoffa, and then they give you another movie about Jimmy Hoffa, and the FBI detained me after I bought a car from Whitey, and Whitey was killed at Hazelton, and Honor Hazel was my lead guitar player's mother, and Hugh on her phone. These aren't coincidences.
That's
and this is the government hiding my truth of Kennedy's murder.
I used to be a truck driver, and I know that you're not allowed legally to remove those seals, and they put some.
No, you don't even know what's in them. So if you got stopped and the trailer's closed, how can they arrest you and put you in jail? And they put him in jail with Jimmy Hoffa, and he guarded Jimmy Hoffa in jail. So it was a good thing he was there. But isn't it interesting that I'm the only guy on earth that I'm in all of these things, and I'm in everything. And it's because they're hiding me, and I am the truth of your president's murder. I showed you just before this started, Ruby Ridge. Can you see that?
I see it.
That's Rico Valentino. He was paid $500,000 to kill an 11-year-old kid, protecting gay bars. They arrested my family member, Mr. Harris. He approached Mr. Harris, asked him for a shotgun, and it was a 1/16 of an inch too short. They arrested Mr. Harris, and then they went up and got this religious leader and shot Victoria and a dog and her little 11-year-old kid because they were afraid my family would retaliate because I escaped Osborne. I escaped 5 governors' family, and they tried to kill me, and they weren't successful. So then they stole my trademark and my name, and gave all of America and all of the world, 244 countries, a fake bottom line and a fake Hugh Squire. And there's the man that did it, and he's a WWF wannabe wrestler with Jessie, Ventura, and Hulk Hogan. And here he is. using the Ryan family here as a human shield after they murdered the 11-year-old kid. And he ran back home, collected his $2 million or $200 million. He got $250 million to kill a little 11-year-old kid, protecting gay bars from the lie of, they said my family was going to dynamite gay bars. My family didn't do anything of the sort. And I forgave the people that kidnapped me. I walked away. And then they kept doing things like putting my family members in jail, killing little kids, and they continue to do this right to this present day. And I'm tired of it.
This is just like the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie where they replace his identity.
And they make a hero out of this guy, and he's using the Ryan family here. He's using her and her kids as a human shield in front of his real wife and kids, and telling her he wants to marry her, as he's already married and has kids in the house behind here. And he used he used Paul Ryan's family as a human shield in front of him, afraid my family would retaliate. And my family believed we created this country, and if I want to put you in jail, Greg, I put you in jail. I don't hire a hitman, and I don't throw dynamite at you. I make out a police report, I get a lawyer, and I take you to jail. Mm-hmm. And that's what our Constitution is all about. We don't want another revolution. I'm not going to run around town throwing dynamite at people. That's not who I am. You understand that, Greg? I believe in the law. These people do not. And they're running your police stations, your FBI, and then you have somebody like Donald Trump hiding all this crime. Oh, he says what a great job they do is they shoot your neighbor for no reason, unarmed. You know, Donald Trump, that's not a good job when your police and FBI shoot people who have done nothing wrong and then accuse people of dynamiting gay bars. No such thing ever occurred. Mm-hmm. And then they use good politicians' family members as human shields to hide their own crime, to protect their own families, and they call them heroes. This is not a hero. This is a coward. And that's why I'm here saying truth, and I'm not afraid. This coward lives down the street from me, and I'm not afraid to say that Rico Valentino is a thief, a coward, and he killed an 11-year-old kid and his dog. And then they lie about the stories. And then they use Paul Ryan's family as a human shield. And then Donald Trump, he calls these people heroes. They're not heroes. L. Brooks Patterson is not a hero. And L. Brooks Patterson is behind this evil person.
And in any sort of history books, 20, 30 years from now, if we don't stop them and we don't get the message out, then what's going to happen is they're going to completely replace the entirety of your life with these other stories, these false.
They already have, over and over and over. This is 60 years later, and they still, L. Brooks Patterson covered up kids murdered, dismembered, tortured, and murdered, thrown on my family's properties, chained next to me in a governor's basement. He effectively hid that truth for 66 years. And those very same people murdered Kennedy and premeditated the murder of Oswald.
$20 million a year. Yeah.
And they give him $20 million a year to solve the crime. He never solves it. He dies, and they tell you what a hero he is. Oh, what a hero he is!
Well,
he got $250,000 to murder an 11-year-old kid, protecting gay bars. Gosh, that's a hero. You know, and L. Brooks Patterson didn't solve a single crime, and he knew he was there when I was kidnapped, and he knew I was tortured and raped. Mm-hmm. And so did the Oakland County Sheriff in that town. And I'm tired. They hid me with George Thorogood. The White family ran Hazel Park Racetrack. You got George Thorogood, as George had me buy him a Corvette, and he drove off to Washington with a little girl. I mean, I'm tired of this con coming out of Michigan, and all this happened in Michigan. These were a Michigan governor, Huey P. Long's family, the Wallace family, Anderson and Nicholson. This is the biggest con there ever was, and they murdered your president, and then they premeditated the murders of children, women, and I mean hundreds. The entire Duncan family was murdered, and they told you they all sat around a table and ate arsenic, or they just picked up a mousetrap and ate arsenic. So you could get arsenic and old lace in your history books from my Aunt Christie.
Yeah,
And then you got,
that's what Lyndon Johnson gave us a deflection story after JFK's death. They killed 5 Duncan kids there in Michigan to distract the nation's attention from what was going on.
I'm sorry, say that again, Greg?
And if I understand right, that was what Lyndon B. Johnson did. He had those 5 Duncan kids killed after the death of Kennedy.
Yeah, that was, they were killed at the very moment Kennedy was killed, at the very moment. And then he was calling my family's farm after they swore him in. That was cover up. A complete cover-up, and Mr.
Arsenic poisoning, like they just put in your water.
Yeah, and Mr. Duncan was my friend. And think about it: the only toys you had for kids at Christmas was a Duncan yo-yo and a Barbie doll. So they kill a whole family of Duncan kids as they're selling you a Duncan yo-yos that go to sleep, and they're giving you arsenic and old lace from my Aunt Christy, and this is the con. It's the con. And it's not the big con. There's a con behind this con. And America does not rule the world. I'm sorry to say it, but America, we do not rule the world. And it's time you got a little humbleness and got on your knees and just thank the Creator you were alive, because you do not rule the world. And you aren't this great big military. This is they're brainwashing you from birth. You're being brainwashed. You're a strong military and you won World War II and you come back heroes, but all of that was by design. And the war itself was by design. And there's a force behind that. And that's what these three-part series we're doing today and next Monday. And then on the full moon, I'm going to finish it off and just tell you who it is. It's very hard to do this. And there's going to be people out there that don't believe me, and I really don't care. But I'm going to have my say. And I was kidnapped at 4 as they murdered Admiral Byrd, and my father's hand was cut off. And L. Brooks Patterson and his police force sat in their cars telling each other's jokes, drinking beer with the neighborhood as I was kidnapped, tortured, and raped. They were sitting right out in front of the house. And they knew it happened.
And it's amazing how far back that the con can go and how they can continue with the same names. I was just jotting down my memory of some of the things you told me about Osborne, which started out as a Michigan governor back in the 1890s.
Yeah.
And then we ended up with the Osborne, it's the FBI, it's the sex crimes division, and Osborne that took you and back.
Yeah, they pass these things down through families because of the money, and they're all they're doing is they're collecting the same taxes, the same families, and they're giving you con stories.
And you can see the names even in the same area today when you see that the Osborne is running the radio in Detroit. The singer.
That's correct. That's correct, Greg. Marie Osborne runs WJR. That's correct, and they're hiding me.
Okay, yeah.
And that's Channel 4, and that's the big talk radio station, 760 WJR. Marie Osborne, welcome to Guy Gordon. Oh, I went to Gordon J. Warner, but they won't interview me for 2 seconds because Osborne runs it, and Osborne was killing little kids in Oakland County. And there's the next generation, Marie. Hi, Marie. Your family's a bunch of childhood pedophiles in Hazel Park. That's all you are. And you're a cover-up, Marie. And so is Guy Gordon. Gordon Lightfoot, Guy Gordon. I'm Hugh of Borg. Hi, Guy Gordon. You're a con. And do you know who you're working for? You're working for a pedophile. And how come none of these people take me to court, Greg? Because I'm telling truth.
Right. I mean, you're out here sitting here on Facebook telling people that they're related to pedophile, and they won't even, because if they dared put this in court, some pretty crazy things.
They sit and smile and act dumb.
Mm-hmm. Then you got the singer Ozzy Osbourne, of course.
Right.
You have Dr. Oz. I mean,
imagine being me, Greg. Imagine being me, Greg. You're chained to a Philadelphia toilet, and grown men are torturing you and raping you and teaching you how to do the nasty at 4. And then they give you the Wizard of Oz, and then they give you Whoopi Goldberg with the Wiz, and they give you Oprah with E. Squire, and then they give you just on and on. I've had to listen to Ozzy Osbourne all my life.
The Wiz.
Oh, isn't that great?
Yeah, and then you have the Wizard of Oz, And the one of the actresses there was your teacher in kindergarten, I think.
In Oakland County, do you know where I try to file murder charges against the Osborne family and the Brooks family and Patterson's family for the Oakland County child killings? You know what they call the dispatcher there, Greg? They call him Whiz. He's the Whiz,
Yeah,
the
he's the Whiz.
dispatcher, and at L. Brooks Patterson's office.
The Wiz of Oz. And then we had
And now it's
the
the Coulter family, and he's gay. I mean, really think about what's going on in Michigan. Oh, a wrestler killed an 11-year-old kid. Now you got Jim Duggan as your governor of Michigan. Oh, there's a lot in that. Remember, it used to be Coleman Young. When I was being raped, it was Coleman Young, and my neighbor was Nichols, and Nichols ran against Coleman Young. And Nichols' kid was Benny, and you got Benny and the Jets. None of this is coincidence, and I'm the truth of all of it.
Did you say that the governor of Michigan's name is Duggan?
Yeah, Jim Duggan.
Like Hacksaw Jim Duggan?
Oh, yeah, there you go. They
Okay.
after stealing my trademark, Hulk Hogan and Jesse Ventura and DuPont, and then lying to you on TV all these years and in books and with Alex Jones and Ram Paul. Paul was my business manager. He sold me out to the Russian mafia. And I don't mean Sylvester Stallone. I mean the Russian mafia, Putin. And there's a WWE wrestler killing my family and a little 11-year-old boy and collecting $250,000. And they put a ridge on Mary Miller. I bought Mary Miller a house. Oh, and Miller wrote a book and said that he killed Hoffa, and Miller worked for me. Oh, but I don't matter. And my mother-in-law was his date at the Sly Fox, and I don't matter. Okay. And in Fox, you're going to tell me another bullshit story about where you buried Jimmy Hoffa. I'm tired of this. Mm-hmm. I am tired of it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they're doing it again. You know yourself, they're doing it again tonight, Greg.
Yeah.
They have a big story on Fox about Jimmy Hoffa and the FBI's big lead. Oh, well, gee, it wasn't Chucky O'Brien. It wasn't me. And gee, Dr. O'Brien was my friend and my neighbor, along with the Barr family. I'm tired of this con, Greg. I'm tired of it. Mrs. Barr fed Mr. Barr to an alligator, a bunch of them in her basement. I grew up with them, I know.
Yeah, the Roseanne.
All those stories disappeared. Right? Yeah. All those stories disappeared just before Trump gave you Barr as your attorney general. I mean, you know, I'm tired of the con. I'm tired of it. I know the truth. I grew up on Hoover Street, 23148 Hoover Street. My phone number was LI49104. I went to Hoover School. It was next door to the Hazel Park racetrack. You got George Thorogood as I was chained to Osborne's toilet and sodomized by grown men. And all of them were the families of governors. And then they took over Hollywood. It's just unbelievable, Greg. The con in this country it's disgusting. And Donald Trump, you're right in the middle of it. And all your kids are too. And now you're even enlisting what's left of the Kennedy family that weren't even alive when you murdered JFK. I'm tired of the con. I'm tired. We haven't had a decent president since the day I was born, other than Kennedy. And he was the smartest man in this country, and you people premeditated his murder in colleges. You premeditated my kidnap. You premeditated the murder of Admiral Byrd. You premeditated the murder of Lee Harvey Oswald. You premeditated the murder of all those kids in my neighborhood. And they're premeditating murders every day surrounding me. And I mean every day.
When we do things like take this Osborne family that is supported by the Queen in England, and we take people like this that are the pedophile gangs, and we blame what they're doing on the Freemasons or something like that, or the quote unquote Illuminati, what we're doing is we are seriously detracting, providing disinformation apart from this true story of what's really going on.
That's right.
Here you're naming names and saying exactly who and what's going on. And these are the people that need to go to jail, that need to be investigated, they
won't get me in a court, Greg, because everything I'm saying is God's truth. Mm-hmm. And they're afraid of me.
And so
that's why they keep trying to murder me.
Jones and Jessie Ventura, who live next to you and know your story, to give false information and blame everything on the
They give you Janine on Fox. Judge Janine. She knows my truth. So does Napolitano. They're complete disinformation. You know, I write Judge Napolitano and I tell him Judge Hunter D. Stair was murdered with Dr. James Brandenburg at Selfridge Air National Guard just before Oklahoma bombing, done by my neighbor Tim McVeigh, if you want to believe that lie. And Sheriff Hackle covered up and murdered Judge Hunter D. Stair, a county judge in not Oakland, in Macomb County at Selfridge Air National Guard, who guards New York airspace. And both Judge Janine and Napolitano refused to even give me an answer. And they want me to believe they're saying truth.
And for those that don't think that, you know, like a lot of people say, well, how can you have all these connections? I mean, you got pictures of Judge Janine on your Facebook, you know, it's from way back, you know, it's like, it's not, you're not making up that you know these people and all this. People
I'm not making up a single
stuff.
thing. I went to school with the Jones family. Paul was my business manager at Bottom Line, New York. Paul in 1965. There's no lie. Before him, it was the Heinz family. Everybody can walk into any store and buy Heinz ketchup. Well, Mark Heinz was my business manager. All right? I'm not making anything up, Greg. And these people, I'm going to show part of the con of Bottom Line and how they've conned the entire American, the whole country has been conned by them stealing my trademark as they murdered Kennedy. And Kennedy was working right with me when they murdered him. And him and his brothers were two of the most smartest people on the face of this earth. If you ever corresponded with the Kennedy family or sent them a letter, they sent you handwritten letters back, and it would be the most educated answer you ever saw in your life. They really cared about America. And Americans in colleges premeditated their murder before he was elected. And I'm the proof of this, but nobody will interview me or look into the proof. And you know, I've told you the proof.
Mm-hmm. In my last video, I was talking about how it takes effort, and people are going to say, well, I'm just going to wait for somebody else to explain it. And then I got into, well, who's going to reveal the truth? I mean, if you wait for Alex Jones to give it to you, you're never going to get it. If you're going to wait for the Democratic side of the media, you're not going to get it. If you're going to wait for the Republican side of the media, you're not going to get it. You were just talking about Judge Janine and Napolitano on Fox. You could talk about, you know, you could go into the Glenn Beck story. You could go into,
before that, it was Pierce Morgan. Pierce Morgan had Robert Blake on, and Robert Blake, there's a statue to him at my lead player's house. My lead player was Dr. Robert Wood. They murdered Natalie Wood. There's a statue to Robert Blake in Kalamazoo where Dr. Wood's practice was. And all of this is Russian mafia and London mafia and Israeli mafia lying to the American public. And they hide me and they collect their payola, period.
That's another word for bribes, folks. Payola.
They do it for the advertising money, and they do it for the power. And now they keep passing you a new president who's going to be your savior, who's lying to you about everything. Clinton lied to you, Carter lied to you, Ford lied to you, Nixon lied to you, Reagan lied to you. Donald Trump is lying to you now, and before him, Obama lied to you. And they keep passing the buck back and forth, and they do everything but say truth.
Yeah, and we showed recently
they invent stories to hide me. They change dates and names to make me look crazy. And that's part of what I want to talk about tonight. The very people who stole my birth name and trademark, I want to talk about that and what they did as that happened in 1970. And even earlier than that, 1969, 68, 67. They were busy destroying my entire life because I escaped those governors who murdered Kennedy. And the CIA is in on this con big time. So is George Bush. You haven't had an honest president since the moment they murdered John F. Kennedy. And I'm not saying John F. Kennedy was the honest cookie in the box, but he was a heck of a lot smarter than anybody I've seen since. Mm-hmm. And so was his brother. And the con of Jimmy Hoffa and JFK, his brother wanted to give you $10 an hour minimum wage. And everybody in the country had Blue Cross. He wanted to give you $10 an hour, all the way back in 1960, before they killed him. 1963, they killed him. He wanted to give you $10 an hour. Jimmy Hoffa had a union. What did he want to do? He wanted to give you $10 an hour. They both had the same figure. They were both after the same goal, and the media played them against each other. Hoffa ended up in jail, and then they used Hoffa to cover up the Warren Commission report as they murdered little kids all around me.
Yeah. And then to divide people's loyalty, they'll toss people's minds between Republican and Democrat in a very much more generic sense, so that they they'll get key issues in each party, so that they'll blame each other and never even look at how good of an idea it might have been. The Republicans won't look at how good of an idea a bigger wage would have been, because that's now a Democrat issue, which they pushed in there. And it's just
a bigger wage doesn't matter, other than it stops you from creating small business. But if everybody's making more money, they spend more, and then they pay more taxes. And I don't like taxes at all. This country doesn't even need to have taxes. They could sell me a government bond and live off the bonds. The Senate and the White House and the House, they're all do nothing. What have they done? They have done absolutely nothing for you. Since they murdered Kennedy, they have done nothing for me. Not a single thing. I don't have medical now. The day I was born, I had Blue Cross Blue Shield. It was great. Mm-hmm. I used to drive a truck and make $300 a week in 1960, and my company bought my clothes for me. I had a nice house, and I was building another house, and I had Blue Cross Blue Shield. Oh, they took all that away, telling you, Blue Cross Blue Shield was a monopoly. We need to get rid of it. And they destroyed this country doing that. And then they did the same thing to Joe Jacobs at IBM. They broke up IBM, said he gave Gates the software to make the first computer. The whole country has lived off of my family's computer. We gave it to you. And that's that's my father. He gave Bill Gates the software. Bill Gates knew nothing about making a computer. He was a dummy. Mm-hmm. All he did was take what was handed to him by my family and turn it into Microsoft. And he made people like Jeff Bezos and PayPal and McAfee, and anybody that made it in the computer business is because of my family. And I'm sorry, I exist. And all of you are a bunch of idiots and moochers mooching off of me after you raped me at 4. And there's no other answer for any of you, including the military, including the police, including Barr, Mr. Barr. Why aren't you looking into the murders of my 4 wives? A district attorney named Slater and a politician named Slater in Oakland County, Michigan, murdered my wife. They used the renegades in Hell's Our Home to do it. Mm-hmm. Okay? It's a no-brainer. You think I'm sitting here for 10 years telling you my wives were dismembered and murdered, and they didn't even get an obituary? You think I'm doing this for nothing, Mr. Barr? And you were my neighbor. You're my neighbor. And this is the biggest con there ever was. And Donald Trump, you're right in the middle of the con. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say it. My father would say, either take a crap or get off the pot. I'm tired of this. This country sucks.
Yeah, and the Attorney General of the United States intentionally not looking into into 4 murders that would lead to an investigation of the assassination of the President of the United States.
That's absolutely correct. And his
family
has been hiding the truth of Kennedy's murder with L. Brooks Patterson for 60 years.
Since they have the whole force of the FBI and the CIA. There's no way anybody can plausibly say they do not understand what's going on here. So they know exactly what happened to JFK.
Greg, how can nobody interview me when week after week, I'm bottom line. I show you the tax licenses. I show you the federal publishing license. Here's Kennedy's White House correspondent, Fletcher Neville. There's my stolen trademark after they murdered Kennedy with a red line in the sand Obama told you about. How can they ignore me? And here's my tax license. And they even stole my tax license. And gosh, Greg, I got to cover up the number. But I'm bottom line, and that's the real tax license.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I'm going to
And
explain
they
something.
even stole my federal tax license to bottom line. And government servants did this, and then they wiped me out of the Library of Congress. And you know how they did that, Greg? The janitors did that. You know, I knew a captain that ran Fort Knox, and he got a job as a janitor, and he would go into Oakland County and Macomb County and clean them up at night. And he would go through the files, and his friends who were divorced and paying child support,
Mm-hmm.
he'd pull their entire files out as a janitor and burn them and trash them. And then there was no record of they'd missed their child support. And this was in 1960. 60.
So it happens. And then they were even
this captain right out of Fort Knox was doing this right in Oakland and Macomb County. And then I knew Santa Claus, who was raping little kids, doing the same thing in the public schools.
And then they're smart enough to even add bottom line to the dictionary around 1980 or so that it doesn't look like a trademark.
Yeah, you know, the word didn't exist, and I applied, and I used Weiner and Associates to apply. Your own mother asked you how did they do it? What Weiner and Associates? And then Weiner and Associates took my money, never enforced my trademark.
Yeah, let me explain
that. And they were across the street.
There's going to be plenty of people who are going to be thinking this question, so I want to make sure that they understand. Well, Hugh has his receipts and licenses and tax licenses and trademarks and all that. You know, he has copies, of course. So people will automatically imply, well, why didn't you get your business back? Well, because when he does, they kill the lawyers.
They murdered my wives. How do you do anything, Greg, when you're in love with a woman and you just had sex with her and she walks out the door and they hang her in her dog's leash? And then you turn around and you know it was 2 policemen who did it. How do you get anything done? Mm-hmm. And they've done that to me 4 times. Before that, they were murdering little kids and throwing in my ditches every month. For 20 years, they did that. They murdered a kid and threw him in my ditches. And then L. Brooks Patterson would sit back with his police officers and laugh and deny I exist. Warren, Michigan, they murdered me in Warren, Michigan. I was murdered. I get a detective who's supposed to protect me. He assigns his son to protect me at my high school, and his son starts screwing my wife. You know, this America is not what you think it is. And
for those of us who grew up sheltered in the hills, we're not going to quickly be apt to understand this. But
of all the policemen I've known maybe 1 or 2 who were actually good people. I don't know any good people who are policemen. I'm sorry if you're out there and you're good policemen. You know what I'm talking about. You use your own wives to make porno movies. You hide prostitutes. You sell drugs right in your police stations, and you can't tell me you don't, because I stopped Noriega's drugs. And the police were running them with the CIA on my farm. Tom Hanks was behind it. Oh, and who's Tom Hanks with? Oprah. Oh, who's Oprah? Oh, she owns Esquire. Well, I'm Squire. And here's Kennedy dead, and there's my stolen trademark. And I know janitors who walk into courtroom files as janitors, and they destroy the records in murder cases. And in my case, I've been murdered 3 times and there's no record of it. I got my copies. Police departments and the hospitals don't. Well, who's doing that? The janitors. And I know dang well they are, because they're all gay. Mm-hmm. And I know this. And that's your gay America. That's your gay political party working through the military. People like that.
You have a guy with a laughable and obvious, despicable name of Peter Buttgig, while the whole world laughs at America. Like, how in the world does this guy get any attention? Everybody in the world's laughing.
Because you're a bad guy, Greg. You're bad if you're not gay. You're bad.
Yeah.
You know, and this is the con, and it's been going on and on and on.
That's the kind of brainwashing we have. We have no need to obey political correctness or think we need to be politically correct. Just ignore it and just say your mind and do what you're supposed to do, and just don't even acknowledge that they prefer you not to notice, and just say, yeah, the guy's name is Peter frickin' Buttgig and he's gay. There's a reason for that. They just like a lot of these other people we've been talking about, they get their names generationally, they set them up to do what they're going to do, and the entire world knows it and laughs at us. But Americans are too stupid because they're so bound by the political correctness, so blinded by the matrix or whatever you want to call it, that they can't even get themselves to say what they see in their own eyes, you know. So how are they going to even acknowledge anything because they're too scared to even say what they see is so obvious.
I'm not supposed to be straight. I have to be Mr. Mom. And if I don't like watching guys do each other in the butt gig, there's something wrong with me.
With their Peter.
Peter, I don't even know what is that.
That's his first name, Peter.
Oh, I don't understand that.
Oh, Peter, that's another.
That's what people always tell me. They don't understand me. You know, it's a crime in this country to be a straight guy. It's a crime. I'm not allowed to be a man anymore.
Yeah.
If you come to me with a gun and try to shoot me and I grab the gun away from you and I punch you in the nose, I go to jail. I'm not even allowed to defend myself in this country, and I'm well aware of it. Mm-hmm. And I don't care. I've been to jail a few times, and I'm still going to defend myself. This is the London throne destroying, and they've destroyed you. The London throne has destroyed you, and she's not even the problem. The Queen of England ain't the problem. Her all of my cousins around her, the princes, they're the problem. Like the one that just come over and married Markle. Can he keep his thing in his pants? You know. Princess Diana running around with Elton John, couldn't she just be a princess and not run around with all those gay men? Her whole family's destroying your country.
Mm-hmm. And that's why
if you don't believe in her gay country and her gay media, and you can't own a gun. Well, did you notice all the murders by knife over there today? Did you watch the news today? They had people murdered on the London Bridge. They had people murdered in downtown London, and all with knives. And then the people fight back. The 10 or 20 citizens being stabbed with a butcher knife fight back. They get cut up. Some of them die, and they're not allowed to own guns. And they're giving you the same agenda now. And you had knife in Holland. 3 people died in Holland, or 4 people today, and there's knife fights all over Europe now, and it's all because of the Queen.
Yeah.
Oh, but you can't fight back. You know those people that fought back on the London Bridge today, where 3 people died. They're all going to jail because you're not allowed to fight back. It's a crime to fight back in London.
That's freaking insane.
And that's what they're doing to you now.
And that's why we have an obligation to do it anyway. We hold these rights to be self-evident, okay? These are rights given by our Creator. We do not need any government on earth to tell us that we have the right to fight back, to oppose, to say what's before our eyes, to think for ourselves, and to not be governed by those who will take away our natural God-given rights. We have these rights already, and they're self-evident. You have an obligation to constantly use them to defend yourself whenever necessary, and you don't need the government's permission. And you already have these. You have to assert your right, and you have to assert your common sense, and you have to assert yourself when the rest of the world is saying no. Be feminine, be passive, let them walk all over you and arrest you when you defend yourself and your countrymen and innocent people beside you. And right now we're trying to defend the innocent victims of pedophiles right now, and it's going to take people who are going to assert themselves to fight against this, who are going to put in the work and time and effort.
Americans need to stand up and quit donating to the very churches that rape your children. That would be a start.
Yeah, that'd be huge.
I mean, really think about that.
Millions of dollars.
Yesterday on Thanksgiving Day in America, you had a Frenchman in court, a cardinal, archbishop, somebody. He's a cardinal. Highest thing you can reach before becoming pope. And he's sitting in court on child abuse charges. And he says, gee, I don't know why it's a crime to torture kids and not report it.
Yeah, he said he
said that Thanksgiving Day. A Catholic archbishop said that in a courtroom. I don't know why it would be a crime. I didn't report children being tortured and raped.
Because nobody ever stood up.
How dumb are Americans to donate to a church like that? How stupid are they? And they all do. I got 4 Catholic schools right in one little 20,000 population town here. They're nuts. You're nuts. You send your kids to the very schools raping your kids, and then you donate to them and think you're closer to God now. Oh, barbarian. His name was Barbarian the Lion. And I'm a Detroit Lion. I was born in Detroit at Holy Cross Hospital, raised to be a priest. I didn't take my vows, and I own BB Street. And I've been jamming with BB, Nat, and Huey all my life because I didn't take my vows. And Israel is a con. It's a con. Sharon Collins, Sharon, Goldberg, Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi Goldberg. Oh, gee, I delivered to all the tapas bars as an adult. I would walk into the girls' dressing rooms, make my deliveries, collect money, and come out. I did that for Morris and Carbonic for 15 years. I saw every black stripper in Detroit, and I got Whoopi Goldberg. And this is the con. And Americans are too dumb to know what I was used for. And I'm on all your money. The Federal Reserve put me on all your money. And Zuckerberg, he's trying to put my second wife, who's still alive, who murdered my next 4, on all your Bitcoin, and he's calling it Libra. That's what she is, a Libran witch. Okay, and that's Zuckerberg. And correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't he have a person called Peter Thiel sitting with Trump? As my thighs were burned and broken, so I would give Marine sex at the age of 4. Oh, Peter Thiel, huh, Zuckerberg? And I don't hate you, Zuckerberg, but my family made you. Without a computer, you wouldn't even exist. And you created Facebook? Oh, gee. Okay. That's no great achievement.
Yeah, these names are.
It really isn't. These people that made these chats, it's no great achievement.
Right.
They were it was handed to you by people like me in colleges who designed the computers. We handed you the software and the programming. Mary Miller, I bought her house. She learned MEMS and gave you barcodes. Okay, we handed these things to you, and then you all became billionaires at my expense and at the expense of dead kids and dead presidents. And then you got the audacity to make the CEO Peter Thiel. And that's just like giving me Neil Diamond, you know, and Neil Sedaka and all these people. Trini Lopez and Crosby lived across the street from me with Lionel Trains. Oh, I'm a lion. I'm Barbarian Cardinal Lion. The Archbishop sitting in a courtroom, and all you people, you got this con going, and you're brainwashing the kids every generation. Every generation, you brainwash the children, and you know you're doing it.
Yeah, and I want to point out to some people that how these names are. You pointed out Peter Thiel, and a little bit ago we were talking about Peter Butt Gig. And, you know, in case anybody didn't catch Peter Thigh, like your thigh on your body, you know, L's referring to you.
But they think they're making fun of me, and they're not. I could care less.
Right. Yeah, so they're saying they're using this, and this is more proof that they're organizing these names years in advance, putting these people.
They're hired for their names. Greg, they are hired for their names. That's how I marked the movie.
Hired for their names, absolutely. Now, here's another example. We had Thiel, Peter Thiel, and then oftentimes you talk about L on Musk and Elt on.
Well, Elon Musk's mother, they murdered Kiki, and she was the cover girl on Maybelline. Maybelline cover girl. They murdered her. And actually, it was her sister Sandy and her sister, little sister Mary, ran Mary Kay Cosmetics. And Karen was prettier than all of them. And Elon Musk's mother took Kiki's sister's place as they murdered Kiki. Oh, gee, I wonder why. The name
would mean L, like if that's referring to you, then you have L on Musk, which you say is a man sent, which is what I've understood too. So that's the what they're showing there is like the man on the man. So it's
they're
like
making fun of me. When they murdered Kiki and Elon's mother took the cover of Maybelline away from the Kissel family and the Nelson family, and she was on it. Elon wasn't even born yet. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then she had a baby, and I was the bottom line, and Johnny Cash was walking me, and she was living in Canada, going to school with my family, Harris. Okay, I'm on his report card with him at the very school he went to.
Yeah, I've seen it.
I know. And she named her kid Elon Musk because they knew I was raped by Canadians.
Yeah.
Osborne is from London.
So you have the Canadian with the L on Musk, and then you have the Englishman Elton John.
You're right, exactly.
Saying the exact same thing, John or Johnson, you know, another.
And I'm living next to John Nichols and McVeigh for 25 years, and Elton John, and you got Benny and the Jets, and John Nichols' son is Benny, and his granddaughter was murdered in my backyard. She wasn't even a year old. She was murdered in my backyard. John Nichols' daughter. And I don't exist. Nobody interviews me. And that happened when Elton John did his first movie, and my cousin Princess Diana was still alive. And then you look at my sister Mary. Her name is Khan. Oh, the mayor of London is Khan. Oh, my other sister is married to the Da Vinci family. Oh, Baldwin before. I say Sue Baldwin from the same pedophiles pulling a gang on her in Hazel Park, Michigan. At Sandra Locke's house, and Anderson was part of the pedophile gang. I stopped from pulling a train on Baldwin, and then they run out to California, marry Clint Eastwood, changed their name to Sandra Locke. And then you get Sandy Hook, and Alex Jones thinks he knows something about Sandy Hook. Well, Sandy Hook was my girlfriend, Sandra Locke. And she's on every fire extinguisher on earth. And her and her brother Joe used to come and party with the Bottom Line, who was me, at a teen nightclub where we didn't drink. Anybody thinks I'm a drug addict or drunk, you're nuts. I don't drink. I don't even know what a beer tastes like. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. And you know yourself, Greg, I'm 66 and I've never had a pill. I don't even take an aspirin. I've had my vaccinations and then I quit. Mm-hmm. Okay. I went through cancer with nothing. I've had cancer since I was 28. Okay. I'm still here. I'm 66. I don't have anybody helping me. I cure myself. It's a no-brainer for me. Your doctors are killing you. All right. And I don't need anybody to tell me that. I watch them do it every day of the week. I can walk into any hospital and 10 people died in it today. I have cancer. I'm still sitting here and I'm alive and well because I didn't go in the hospital today.
Yeah. When we use our own brains and we assert ourselves, which is what they don't want us to do, even in the medical field, we come up with all kinds of better answers. And you've been beating it since, for 30 years or whatever. And, when I did that.
Since I was 28 and I'm 66.
Yeah, 38 years.
I don't know.
When I chose to do that myself, Hugh, and I realize it's a rabbit trail, but it is kind of interesting. I have one kid with autism, and when I decided to think for myself, I realized that oxygen has something to do with killing, or not killing, but with waking up blood flow in your brain. And I also, thought about how in the past that increased oxygen levels must have had something to do with better, healthier.
Well, look at the problems. They got 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 kids because they didn't learn how to breathe. They all think they're going to get healthy vaping. Yeah. Look at how many kids you got dead. And it's a no-brainer. Breathe.
Yeah,
it's real simple.
Well, breathe. I took her and I put her in a hyperbaric chamber, and immediately her autism was she got out of diapers. She was still in diapers at 8 years old. And just within weeks of doing the hyperbaric chambers, like 10 times, she started her mind started changing very dramatically. This is what happens when we think for ourselves as people, rather than just constantly depend on doctors.
Very few people know how to think for themselves, Greg. And the older I get, the more I realize that. They think if they haven't seen it on the news coming from London, it's not true.
And that's exactly what they think.
Did you have anything else you wanted to ask me before I go into this?
I want you to go right into it. Let's get
okay. Yeah. And you don't even know what I'm going to talk about, but I own Bottom Line. Everybody knows it. Then Fletcher Nebel and the Detroit News stole it, and Obama's still stealing it with Trump and Barr. Trump says Bottom Line in his White House speeches. It's my stolen trademark. And my wives have been murdered covering that up. And Kennedy was working with Bottom Line, JFK and his brother Bobby and Robert and all the Kennedys, John. I even wrote a song for John, and they murdered him the next day. The man that helped DuPont steal my name is this guy right here. And this is called Bottom Line Personnel in New York. And it was created before the Twin Towers existed. And they had stolen my trademark already. The Detroit News. And they murdered my singer, Danny Harold, in Florida, down in Mar-a-Lago, where Trump lives. And then the Detroit News, which is a Herald, the news, they murdered Danny Harold, and he was only 18, 19 years old. And the Vietnam War was going on. It was about 1965, and he was a great singer. He was better than the Bee Gees. You would have loved him. But unfortunately, they murdered him down in Florida. And then the Detroit News took my trademark, Bottom Line, with 2,500 other corporations, and they all did it within a year. DuPont, was behind most of the corporations. And the FBI that likes to kill little kids and then use Ryan Family for human shields was behind that. WWF with DuPont, and they stole the WWF trademark. At the same time, they stole the Bottom Line trademark. And in New York, they were still putting the Twin Towers up. And you got Bottom Line Personnel from Martin Edelstein. And Edelstein was the Santa Claus giving me blowjobs in a closet when I was in Catholic school and a little kid. The Edelstein family, at the same time they gave you Bottom Line Personnel, they built the largest child abuse psychiatric facility in the country, in the state of Washington. And they built it just for me. And I know this. I know this for a fact. Because after they murdered my fourth wife, they told me I was crazy. And they built up this fake medical record in a place I didn't even live. I didn't even live where they have this fake medical record saying that I'm crazy. And they didn't give none of my wives an obituary. And they want to put me in, this guy who stole my trademark before they built the Twin Towers after killing 4 Kennedys. They want to put me in a mental house. And gee, I've really never had a psychiatrist in my life. I'm on 0 pills. I don't drink and I don't do drugs, and there's nothing wrong with me. I don't know how else to say that. Do you think I'm crazy, Greg?
No, you're definitely not crazy.
Do I have documents to back up everything I say?
Yeah, and anybody wants to see them can just look at them right there.
Do you think I have dementia? Do you think I have Alzheimer's?
No, because you're sharp as a tack.
I was born at 23148 Hoover, and I was actually born on 8 Mile and Outer Drive at Holy Cross Hospital at 12 noon as the band was going by on July 4th, 1953. There's nothing wrong with me mentally. I have a lot of physical problems, and I have a lot of really hate for my government servants that have murdered kids and women. And 2 million people using my name and money. Saddam Hussein did not do 9/11. Bin Laden was an American, and they stole my trademark Bottom Line. And here's the guy that helped DuPont do it, Ed Edelstein, as they built a mental hospital. And what I wanted to say, Greg, is I had Dr. Pasternak, and I was not his patient. He was head of the entire Southeast Michigan and part of Ohio Psychiatric Association. He tried to murder me. Before I was even 21, he attempted to murder me. I ended up in Beaumont Royal Oak Hospital, and they saved my life. 3 doctors saved my life. And this is when they were constructing this hospital, the head of the Psychiatric Association, he poisoned me and attempted to murder me. And I ended up in Royal Beaumont, and the 3 doctors, they knew he did it because it was his prescriptions and his pills, and he gave them to me, and I wasn't his patient. And I went back to Michigan this past year to file Oakland County reports, again, attempting to get L. Brooks Patterson to take a report and be honest for once in his life before he died, and he refused to do it then and gave the world Dr. Nasser. I put in Freedom of Information Acts for my own murder because Dr. Pasternak murdered me, poisoned me. He gave me 3 pills that the doctors who saved my life, they told me that any of those 3 pills are deadly, and if you take any 2 together, it'll kill you. He gave me 3 pills, and any 2 pills in any combination would kill a person. Well, he gave me all 3 at once. in a cup of coffee.
Again, with the coffee.
Yeah, nice guy. As they built, as the Edelstein family built this mental hospital in the state of Washington for abused children. It was for abused children. And if you remember, Greg, I escaped the Osborne family and I walked away and I went and did my first confession. And then I was raped by the janitor in the church, and the priest went and premeditated Oswald's murder with the pedogang. And that was Father O'Donnell at St. Mary Magdalene's. But it didn't change the fact that I forgave those people, turned around, went home, prayed, and tried to live my life normally. And they never let me. And they're still not letting me do that today. As these people stole my name, my trademark, my publishing license, and my IRS license. And after Kennedy was murdered, his press secretary pointed me out, and Kennedy was saying, to you Tribune publishers, and I'm a Tribune publisher, and there's part of the proof of it. I own Bottom Line New York, and I have all my life. Before me, my great-grandfather owned Schwartz Video and gave you Charlie Chaplin all over the world. I'm not a pipe dream. I'm not a truther with a conspiracy theory. I'm living these things, and every word I say is gospel. And anybody wants to call me a conspiracy theory, I'm like, you know, you can go here and order the magazine that was stolen from me and my stolen trademark, and that's definitely not a theory, and it's not a conspiracy. It's reality for me. This cabal of gay people, a pedophile gang who operate in your Senate and House and White House and governor offices that you elect, and they operate in your churches and you elect them. And it's not just the Catholic Church, it's all the churches. You elect them as your Episcopal friends, as they rape little kids like me, kill us, dismember us, murder your president, and keep you in a box like a horse with blinders. And I'm making these videos because I'm tired of being abused. I have no civil rights. I have no freedom of speech. Greg, you're the only person on earth other than Amy who has ever helped me. Nobody helps me. And you know, look at the things I have. How would I know the guy that led Ruby Ridge? How would I know Paul Ryan's family? And they own Mount Rushmore too. How would I know Miss Simpson? How would I know the owner of Bottom Line, who stole his Bottom Line from me? And 2,500 corporations stole this, as Weiner ran off to New York with my money and didn't protect my trademark. And then, gee, Weiner married Aberdeen as on your board there, Tom Garrett. He's a perfect match for me.
Yeah.
And he was sending me Clinton's computers as they were investigating her. And I have the records for this. Still have some of the hard drives. And remember yesterday I tweeted.
They broke in and smashed some of them, didn't they?
Yeah, remember I tweeted that to John B. Wells for about the 10th time, and he just ignores me like I don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Remember?
Yeah, he was fired when he was about to tell your story.
Yeah, he's just like Judge Napolitano and Fox, O'Reilly, and Fletcher Neville. And then, isn't it amazing? Fletcher Neville, Kennedy's press secretary, steals my trademark and my name with DuPont. And then another CBS correspondent helps murder my wife and my attorney and destroys my income at the same time he's sending me Clinton's emails. And then he was buying them back. And it wasn't just Clinton's emails. He was sending me FBI computers. They said top secret on them. I'd open a box and it said FBI top secret. And they're coming right from Obama's White House. And that's how they were hiding them, using me to do it. Interesting. And nobody will interview me? Nobody will interview me.
That's just what I was going to say.
And I have witnesses to this, and I have records. I have records and witnesses, and nobody will interview me.
Yeah, if this wasn't controlled cover-up, then there would be a million real legitimate reporters who would.
And Sandy Hook and my girlfriend just happened to be Sandra Locke, and Sandra Locke had just happened to be Anderson. And Anderson ran they put my uncle in Marquette State Prison, and Anderson, they made him warden, and Anderson was raping me as L. Brooks Patterson sat outside the house where they had me chained to Osborne's Philly toilet. And then my family was writing Elvis Presley's songs as of the day I was born. Good Golly, Good Miss Molly, and Devil with the Blue Dress. He was singing them in his movies. My family was writing them on the day I was born, and nobody will interview me. And I'm a publisher. I published them. All right. And I actually would go out and have dinner with BB Born, and she owned Elvis Presley. That's Elvis Presley's publisher. And she prints all the school books all across the nation, your college and your high school, and they brainwash you in her books, but nobody will interview me as they murder your president and mark me and steal my life. I have no civil rights, no freedom of speech. I was richer than any man in this country, and people like CEO Cook and Perry at Macintosh murdered my wife.
And that is definitely a good example of what we're talking about as far as part one of the con, how the government can do this much damage to one person, generationally planning these things, including FBI, including CIA, including pedophile gangs, biker gangs, doctors, psychiatrists, all these people all put together, all combined, coordinated.
They built mental hospitals and stole my trademark using taxpayer money as they murdered the president and his family.
Putting words in dictionaries, controlling media reports, websites, firing John B. Wells, murdering Jim Mars for offering to print your story,
murdering Robin Williams, murdering Harvey and Charlie Hebdo, and marking me with Foy and hiding me with people like the Attorney General of the United States, the Barr family. I built an airplane with Mr. Bolton. With Mr. Bolton.
Yeah. John Bolton, whatever.
And then who was that? John B. Wells interviewed in 2016. Michael Flynn, General. Is he General?
I believe so.
I went to school with him. Just like I went to school with Jones. Hubert Wells was SWAT team playing cards with me on 9 Mile in Mound, while his daughter sat there playing cards with us. They SWAT teamed Hubert Wells. But John B. Wells won't interview me, and he was fired because I talked to Sophia Stewart, an Indian girl, and half white, half Indian, and half black. And my best friend growing up was the best jazz drummer on earth, half white, half black, J.C. Hurd. I used to play with J.C. Hurd, and he was the world's greatest jazz drummer. And then I become a publisher, and I played his bottom line for 38 years, and nobody will interview me, and I don't exist. Kid Rock got a big mention today. Oh, Kid Rock gets drunk and says something about Oprah, and he's all over the news. Oh, but his publisher and a guy who I'm Squire, and she owns E-Squire magazine. After they gave me Fs, they gave me Fs in my public school. Over and over, they chained me to a toilet and give me Fs. Then I got E-Squire magazine from Coleman Young and Gilbert Hill and Eddie Murphy and Denzel Washington and Oprah and B.B. King, and all these people marked me for real. They marked me as they raped me. And then they gave you a fake president in your White House, the Queen's spy from Kenya. He's half white. He's a white man. Obama's a white man. He's not black. You want to fight over it? He's a white man.
Yeah.
Obama's a white man.
Yeah.
His girlfriend, his wife might be black, but he's not. He's a white man.
Mother's name was Stanley, gave her
that's my half brother, Stanley.
Yeah.
And then now I got Harris, Kamala Harris from India. I think she's really Pakistani. I think she snuck across the border into the Virgin Islands, and she's really Pakistani, pretending to be Indian. And I'm the Harris family. And my great-grandmother was sitting with Lincoln as he was murdered in Ford Theater, Miss Harris. And anybody can look in the history books and read Miss Harris was with Lincoln. Oh, well, this Pakistani woman who snuck into the Virgin Islands and pretends to be from India, using my family's name, wants to be your president and wants me to pay for something people did 300 years ago. And I have no civil rights because of people like Coleman Young, Gilbert Hill, Eddie Murphy. Esquire magazine owner, Oprah, and Whoopi Goldberg. Gee, I saw all these naked black girls in Detroit and Chicago for 12, 15 years. I'd walk right into their dressing rooms in the bars I had to make my deliveries in, Greg, and they'd pay me thousands of dollars every week to give them soda setups, and they were all naked. I saw every naked girl in Detroit, every naked girl in Chicago for 15 years, knew the owner of magazines. I knew the guy that was airbrushing all the Playboy models. Vargas was my friend, delivered to him. Shapiro was my friend, but I don't exist. Isn't that interesting?
I mean, if this is just part one, then I mean, I'm really looking forward to part two.
Well,
and
this isn't even the con. This is just my life, Greg.
Yeah.
And this is the truth of America. This is what's really going on in America. And America does not rule the world.
Yeah, this is like the symptom. It's not even, we haven't even got to the actual disease yet.
No, you're in a big box, and I'm just pulling away one little onion after another. Elton John, he's the very black community that's destroying my right to be a straight man. I'm not gay. Do you know, Greg? Just before I talked to you yesterday, I had 3 men, between 40 and 50. Show up on cam, asked to talk to me, pretending to want to know my story, and all of them were naked, showing me their penis. And anybody listening to this, when you guys do that, I report you to the police and Facebook as pornography, because I don't want to see it. I don't even allow women to do that. I'm not gay. Just because a bunch of guys beat me and tortured me and stuck things in me, it doesn't mean I'm gay. It means I was abused and tortured. And not only was I physically abused, I was mentally abused all my life. And the very people who tell you, who are getting $20 million a year to solve the murders of the kids all around me on my properties, they call themselves the Whiz. And this is all by design. And they'll never solve the murders, and they'll never admit I exist. But I exist, and I'm here. And like I say, how could I have, she owns Mount Rushmore. That family, Ryan owns Mount Rushmore. He used her for a human shield, and I'm related to 3 of the 4 presidents on Mount Rushmore. How could I possibly be in all these things if I'm not the truth of Kennedy? And why was I set up on the Manning Ranch? And why did Mazar LLP, Trump's lawyers, his tax license lawyers, why did they sell me the farm I lived on before the Manning farm? You realize that, Greg? Yeah, Mazar LLP, yeah. Trump's tax lawyers, gave me the farm I lived on in Michigan, where I stopped the CIA gun and drugs. And that was Tom Hanks was behind that. And they gave you that movie where he walked across America and like a real dummy. I don't know what that, what was that movie? It was a big blockbuster movie.
I'm making a note here.
I can't remember the name of it, but it sold 1 billion tickets. And this guy walked across America, and everybody cheered him on as I stopped Noriega's drugs. And the drugs were being run by Tom Hanks. Interesting. And then the next thing you see is Tom Hanks is with Oprah, and he's got a black eye.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not the same Tom Hanks as they used the name.
Yeah, the same. I stopped Tom and Hanks drugs.
Right.
And
so they gave you.
And as I'm being marked in all these movies, hiding the drugs and hiding the theft, the bottom line.
Right.
As they build a mental hospital for me and steal my trademark at media networks, And then my next door neighbor was the guy on the back cover. Lee Iacocca's son-in-law was my next door neighbor. He's still right there in Utica, Michigan. And he owns Nagy Cement. Lee Iacocca's son-in-law, excuse me. And he lived next door to I and my murdered wife, Victoria. And Victoria, your calculator says she's 9/11, huh?
Yeah.
And all of my murdered wives added up are 9/11. I think your calculator works, but too bad it was invented 3 years ago.
Yeah, something like that.
I
Yeah.
could have used it when I was 4 and 53. But I've been doing all those calculations in my head simply because I know who hurt me.
Mhm.
I know what they did to me.
Yeah. And for those that understand this sort of logic is gematria logic, this should be a big revelation to you. I mean, you're seeing somebody right here who went through it and who's testifying to how it works. I
There's
mean, pay
nobody like me.
attention.
I've gone through more murders than anybody on earth. More marked by more murders. They murdered all those people in the Middle East using my money and my name, and I was used as ground zero
People
by
need to
President
understand,
Bush.
yeah, when you said that the Rodin murders in Ohio were the Russian mafia, and then they equaled exactly with the Russian mafia, all that gematria went together perfectly. After you said it, that should be some pretty powerful evidence to people
Yeah,
who are
well,
listening to what you're saying.
people are skeptic of everything. I'm not a theory, and I don't use your I don't know nothing at all about your calculator, and I'm always
Right.
amazed at the numbers you come up with. And then I look over your shoulder and see you doing it, and yeah, you're coming up with the very things I know.
Mm-hmm.
Using and that doesn't surprise me all that much, Greg, because my uncle was Bucky Fuller, and he was the
Yeah.
smartest mathematician on earth.
Mm-hmm.
That guy Nassim Haramein, the guy that gives you all these the savant with numbers. Well, he learned from my uncle.
Yeah, I joined his Facebook page.
Right.
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me that they're doing everything by the numbers. It doesn't surprise me.
Right.
And
Right.
I've known this all my life because I know that this is gospel. They premeditated Kennedy's murder and the murder of his brothers in colleges before he was elected president. And I know this is true.
And even Fox News, to even detract from this, just made a segment that's called News by the Numbers.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Did they?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I can tell you the thing wrong with the calculator is now you'll have real killers in all the services using the calculator to do murders.
Well, that's true. They could use.
And in my life, that wasn't the case because the calculator didn't exist. But your calculator, they probably used me for a role model to
I think
build it.
I really do.
No, I do too. I couldn't fit so perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
And Garrett, Major Tom Garrett, he's a gay man. And the guy that took L. Brooks Patterson's place, he's another gay. What's his name? Coulter. And did you ever look in and see if that's Ann Coulter's brother?
No, I haven't.
Oh, well, I wouldn't doubt it. Just like Osborne was a gay man, Governor Osborne, and his offspring is running WJR Detroit, and they're all gay people.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I stay it, I'm bad. I'm supposed to respect them because they tortured me when I was 4. I don't. I never will. And you're gay, and I think you're very bad people. And to be running my media and brainwashing all the children, I think you're even worse.
Yeah.
And then you American parents who send your kids to these churches and then donate to them as they rape your children, you're just as evil as the priest doing that.
Yeah.
I have no respect for any of you anymore. I think the Pope should be in a prison, being poked by. I think we ought to get Dr. Ruth to make a whole bunch of vibrators and put the Pope in like a coffin with vibrators vibrating all over his body and squirting on him for eternity. I think that's what that man deserves. Now he's doing all these nice things like opening up the Vatican archives, which is all BS. They were already open. Anybody could go in there and read them if they knew how to handle the documents years ago. So he's done nothing other than steal my middle name and cover up the murder of Kennedy with his priest.
Yeah, that's how big the symptom is for the con that you're about to reveal here in the next 2 weeks.
Well, this is the first part of the con, and I wanted to reveal. They used your tax dollar money to make up fake records and say that Hugh Squire was a mental patient when he wasn't. And then the head of the psychiatric program, as they stole my trademark in the media, in movies, tried to murder me when I escaped the governors who were raping me. And I didn't completely escape them because I didn't completely escape them until I was 35. I was drugged and raped at 35. Can you imagine being 35, raising 7 kids? Paying for 2 women, built 2 houses, and driving a truck into every a bar in Detroit and coming home and going to work and having somebody drug your food and rape you. And it wasn't one guy, it was a group of guys. And it was the same pedo gang all over again until I was 35.
So these
Isn't that
people,
interesting?
their power is so much, and they are so committed to their causes that they create hospitals. How many millions of dollars went into that to cover these stuff?
A billion. And it's under the guise of abused children. Like I'm crazy. They abuse me. I walk away and pray for them, forgive them. They murder kids all around me. I go to the police, and the police give you Dr. Nasser.
Right.
And before that, it was Hoffa, and before that, it was another murderer, Timmy King. And they never take my truth because they're hiding the truth. And then they murder my wives. Every 7 years, they murder my fiance or my wife on a holiday. And then they tell you I'm crazy. And I'm telling you, I'm not crazy. I'm here for justice. And I'm as sane as anybody on earth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably the most sane person on earth because I know the truth of your president's murder. And not one president, two presidents, Lincoln and Kennedy. I know the truth.
Yeah, your direct ancestor.
And then after Mr. Pasternak, after this man stole my trademark as they were building the Twin Towers, and Del Towers was my music teacher, and Cook and Perry were my family members, and they helped murder my wife and cover it up and on a Manning ranch. And Manning gave me the ranches. They gave you Bradley Manning to hide the Manning Warren Commission report when I started saying the truth of Sandra Locke and Sandy Hook and Alex Jones and Julian Assange. America, you have no truthers. And I need to repeat this every video I make. Julian Assange is a pedophile who was raping little girls in Switzerland. And he was set up and he fled his court case. And little Americans' kids on drugs made him their truther because of people like Alex Jones and Jessie Ventura and George Norrie at Coast to Coast telling you he's your truther.
And that right there is a huge truth drop.
You fell for the con.
Mm-hmm.
If he was giving away military secrets, and anybody with a 38, I could have walked up with a snub-nosed 38 and shot it through the wall and killed them at any time in the past 50 years. Mm-hmm. And WikiLeaks and Wicca, I mean, it's a no-brainer. He's not truth. He's not a truther. He's a pedophile who raped little kids and took advantage of the computers in a foreign country. And then your media lying to you about Kennedy's murder made him your disinformation, and you all bought it. Your truthers are the disinformation, along with all the media stations. And people don't realize things like Kraft worked for me. The Kraft family worked for me. They make cheese. You had a Chris Kraft, Hardball, Chris Matthews. All these things feed together in your media, and it brainwashes you. And Kraft and his wife worked for me next door to the Carousel, and Jack Ruby owned it. And then he would just put in front of a court and made fun of because he's the owner of the Patriots, and some Chinese girl gave him a massage and a hand job and probably some other things down in Florida by Trump. And I wonder if he's an Episcopal friend too. And I voted for Donald Trump. I don't hate you, Mr. Trump, but you really need to look into the truth of Kennedy's murder and not pretend to. And you really need to look into Nancy Frederick's murder and Karen Nelson Kissel's murder and Terry Heath Olson's murder and Victoria Milan Manjo's murder. Mm-hmm. They were dismembered, raped, and murdered over a 35-year period to hide my truth of 9/11, Kennedy, and Hoffa, and the Oakland County child killings. And I don't know how much clearer I can be.
Yeah.
And they used the very pedophile gang that killed Kennedy used this guy, and he used that girl after killing an 11-year-old kid, and your media made a hero out of that guy for using her for a human shield with her children. thinking I was going to retaliate and bomb Osborne's bars where they were selling me as a sex slave.
Yeah.
This is beyond ridiculous, Mr. Trump and Mr. Barr. And I'm not going away, and I'm not lying. And what are you going to do to me? You already stole all my money. There's nothing left to sue. I gave the houses to kids for $1 each. I have no houses. I don't own any land. You stole my trademark and all my entertainment contracts. You took my birth name. You murdered me 3 times. What are you going to do to shut me up? It's not going to happen. It's already too late for you people. You need to look into the truth. It's a real simple thing. It's spelled Truth. Truth. Don't look into the lie of Fox. Don't look into the lie of CNN. Anderson Cooper. Anderson raped me. Cooper raped my daughter. Nancy was her mother. CNN 360. I got a pedophile gang in my head right there. And his mother was my mother's friend a long time ago. Miss Harris's friend. Anderson Cooper, his mom, and then because of Hollywood, and then I got the Muir family, the ghost of Mrs. Muir, and that's the Duncan family with the yo-yo, NBC, ABC. Then I got Fox with Pierce Morgan, framing Blake, framing OJ, hiding me for a lifetime. And I owned all the Fox contracts before Fox Cable existed. I've already shown you those documents, Greg. I'm Truth, Truth. I'm not a conspiracy. I have real books, real pictures, and I got tons of these things. And I am Truth of your president's murder. And it's time. Greg, can you handle it if pedophiles are raping your kids and running your churches and you're donating to them? Can you handle that truth?
If we don't stand up and start doing this, then we're done. We are
You're
done
already. You're already done. You need
whether or not we want to reclaim it.
You're all of you are already in the slimy, filthy, tar-filled gutter. Yeah. And you need to just stand up and wash yourself off.
No more. It's done.
And I'm trying to get you to do that. Just you're laying in a tar-filled, shit-filled gutter. All you got to do is stand up, open an ear, look at the truth, and I got tons of it. I got real documents. I really own Bottom Line New York. They really stole my name and my trademark. And then they told you an American didn't cause 9/11, and that's the biggest lie there ever was. And now they're telling you, oh, we got a great military, we got great police, after they hid the murders of children and murdered 1 million people who weren't guilty. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You need to get out of the shit-filled gutter. And I don't know how else to say it.
That's a good way to say it. It's time to start. It's time to start over again.
Yeah, it really is. I have, where I live here, I see real men who are good, decent men, and they look at me in the stores and they just look me in the eye and they say, it's time for a reboot. You hear me, Mr. Trump? And they're not talking about you. Mm-hmm. They're talking about us as Americans. Mm-hmm. We want our media back. We want real reporters. We don't want police lies. We don't want senators selling drugs. We don't want governors raping children. We don't want churches raping our children. Mm-hmm. And then the media covering it up. Right. We want truth, Truth, and that's what I am. I really am the truth. And anybody wants to call me a conspiracy, you're going to lay in that shit-filled gutter for the rest of your life. Right. That's where you're at.
And the pedophilia movement needs to be ripped up from its roots, no matter how high up they go, no matter how many governors have to go, no matter how many other politicians have to go, or CIA members have to go, or FBI directors have to go. All of it has to be ripped up.
The cover-ups need to be gone. And it's not coincidence. It's not coincidence that during the Vietnam War, you had the Eagles and Joe Walsh, and my church was led by Joe Walsh. That's all by design.
Wow, yeah.
And it's the very people raping and killing your children. It's a no-brainer. And then they use you in these wars, and then when the war is finished, They gave you back the draft for Vietnam, and then after Vietnam was over, they told you it wasn't a war, it was a police action. Well, then how could they bring the draft back? You know, this is insane what they're doing to you and how they're brainwashing each generation of you. Wow. Come on, sit up out of that tar and just stand up and walk upright. I know some of you can do it. You know, you better start. Quit raping your little kids all around you. Stop murdering your wives. Stop shooting 50 people at a time because you're upset, and just try to be good people. I know you have it in you. Some of you do. You're being walked all over. And unless you stand up and start being good people and looking for truth, your country's over. You're done.
At the local level, assert your God-given rights. Stand up and say what you see before you, and don't worry about the repercussions of just doing what's right. Just do what's right. Just say what's right. Just if you see something that's wrong, say it. Don't worry about, defend the innocent. Don't be afraid of masculinity in this country. Stand and do your part, and behave such. And that's what we
have
need.
A right. You have a right to be a male, and you don't have to be a gay male, and you don't have to look at two guys kissing and like it. You don't have to.
That's right.
And it doesn't matter how much they try to tell you you have to do those things. You don't. I don't have to accept two guys kissing at my doorstep. I can tell them to move on, get the heck out of here. I don't have a right to hurt them, but I don't have to have them in my house, on my TV. Do you know I can't find a TV show that doesn't have two gay men and two gay women in it?
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of shows
I can't find one that has a straight man in it. If you find one with a straight guy in it, let me know. I can't find one. They even turned Star Trek into a gay captain. It's unbelievable.
I saw that. Yeah, that was so sick. I couldn't watch it. I tried. I'm a big Star Trek fan. I couldn't watch it.
Yeah, and that's the people who murdered John Benet Ramsey. That's the Bennett family. Tony Bennett, all the gas pumps were made by the Bennett family, and that's what they called John Benet when I had road rage. And my road rage, Michigan, you deserved my road rage. You were killing little kids all over my properties and women, and I will do it again. You start killing people here, I will fight back. Now, you see this? This con here, bottom line personnel, and they made the entire lawyer's bar exam the bottom line book. Attorneys did this. Edelstein, Sandusky, Pepper, and they were all New Yorkers like Giuliani. They stole my trademark as they were building the Twin Towers, and then they turned it into Hollywood's lawyer's bar. And for 50 years, every lawyer in the country who became judges and Supreme Court justices study out of my stolen trademark bottom line after they murdered the Kennedy family. And they murdered kids to hide me. And this is the truth of your country. So your entire lawyer's bar are thieves to me. Every one of them allowed this to happen. Weiner and Associates, Sandusky, Pepper, and anybody that studied out of the bottom line to pass the bar exam, every one of you is a thief. And you don't deserve to have a license from the bar. I'm sorry, but you don't. And that includes Mazar, who sold me my farm in Michigan where they were running the drugs with Noriega, all the senators, like Graham. All of them are running drugs and guns illegally.
Now, you've been standing for this truth basically alone for quite some time now.
All my life. And nobody helps me, Greg.
And now you have a couple more people, and now it's time for other people who are listening to this to pay attention, to take it upon themselves. You can tell this is true. If you don't, keep researching, keep paying attention, ask questions. We'll make sure you understand the truth. As long as you're not being a butthole or something, if you're honest and sincere, we'll answer your questions. We'll help you understand it, because this is what the truth looks like, and nobody else is saying. You're not hearing this truth anywhere else.
If you can see the address, it comes right out of Christie's State, New Jersey, Millburn, New Jersey, but they were actually located in New York. Mm-hmm. All right, when they did this. But if you applied for a subscription, it went right to my cousin Christy and Agatha Christie, and they killed the Duncan kids. for their movie, Arsenic and Old Lace. It's in your, it's like a classic book they give you to read in school. Okay. And then she gave you Murder on the Orient Express with people like Sean Connery. And then the statue in the other video I showed you that I made here with Margaret Riddle, where at her gravestone here in the state park, they removed the statue that shows you Whelan arrested for being a spy in Russia with Sean Connery, the Healy family and the Austin family with my family, the Harris family. They removed the statue as they put as they gave you the story, Whelan's in a Russian jail. And Whelan's from Michigan, where I was kidnapped. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you see the con in your media, Greg? Yeah. And then all of them are in Ukraine, and Whelan is like this little distraction with Putin, and Ukraine don't even matter. I mean, why are we giving Ukraine all that money? We give Ukraine more money than we're giving Israel. I bet you Putin, not Putin, Bibi Netanyahu must be jealous. He can't even form a government because they're giving all his money to the Ukraine. I just wonder how much money you think they're giving to Germany. They keep electing our governors and presidents with douche bank. I should say Deutsch. Excuse me, girls, but I like to call them douche bank because a bunch of douchebags run it, and they're giving money to the people that run to be your president and your governors. Yeah. And I don't really care where you got your money from, Trump. I know where you got most of it from, stealing it from Americans. You never paid it back. You filed bankruptcy against all of us. I know all the bankers. I know what you did. Mm-hmm. So do you. And good for you. If you're rich, it's because you stole the money. And that's what you call bankruptcy. I filed bankruptcy once because somebody hit me with a semi and tried to kill me on my motorcycle. I filed bankruptcy because I had to stop working for a couple of months because I was really torn up. I couldn't pay my bills. I had 7 kids and I was 17 years old. I had just built my first house. It was 5 bedrooms on a double lot. I had a lot of bills and nobody gave me no child support. So when Sears, Roebuck, and Montgomery Wards took me to court, I had to file bankruptcy. And it wasn't $5 billion at a time, Mr. Trump. Or I could say like you, oh, I'm rich. Because you file bankruptcy and steal other people's money, that means that's not something to be proud of. And because you had to go to a Deutsche Bank to run to be president, that's not something to be proud of. And because a Russian man from Ukraine, Ed Asner, made you a president with Germany, that's not something to be proud of. I live in America. You're living with my enemy and telling me you're my truther and you're going to fix everything and make America great again. I don't see it happening. You fired Spencer. I grew up next door to Mrs. Spencer and Mrs. Brown and the Duell family, and they were good people. They didn't put me in a basement and chain me to a toilet and rape me and kill little kids and dump them on my properties like the Barr family covered up. They were good people, Mr. Trump, and I voted for you, Mr. Trump, hoping you would really change things, and you haven't.
If he's going to have to come out from among all this muck like the rest of us.
The really sad part, Greg, is we're in, like Ted Nugent likes to say, a stranglehold, and Bob Seger, you're in a stranglehold. Mm-hmm. You got nobody to vote for. You can vote for the pedogang, you can vote for the Russians, you can vote for the Pakistani pretending to be from India and the Virgin Islands, stealing the Harris name. You can vote for, let's see, we have a girl that says she's Indian, but she's not Indian, and she marks my little sister Elizabeth. You can vote for her. Or you could vote for, you know how the FBI arrested me because Whitey sold me a car, Whitey Bulger? Well, who's Whitey Bulger's friend? Who's Whitey Bulger's friend? Joe Biden. Remember? Joe Biden and Whitey Bulger. They're buddies. Did you know that?
No.
Oh, I did. Oh, Whitey Bulger. And they just beat him to death in Hazleton, Hazleton makes all the AA books with Castro. Castro was your own CIA pretending to be Russian, taking all the notes at the AA meetings, Castro, giving it to the CIA and FBI and destroying all you American families because you drank too much. And then they pretended to be Russia when they were American CIA all along. They beat Joe Biden's friend, Whitey Bulger, to death in Hazleton. And Hazel Honor Kowalski was my lead guitar player's mother. She was half white, half black. Hazleton makes the AA books. They beat him to death with a sock full of rocks. And gosh, I'm swinging a sock at you right now. I'm the publisher of all those little rocks they beat Whitey Bulger up with in Hazleton. Oh, and they tortured me and they burned my thighs. And they gave you the Achille Laurel. And they gave you all kinds of leg lamps in Christmas movies hiding my truth. And it came from Peter Fonda's father. And it's real interesting, Jane Fonda and Peter Fonda and Henry Fonda. And I know the con. Mm-hmm. It's a con from Hollywood. And the con was to destroy me at birth. And they did a good job at that. Nobody knows who I am. And I'm the truth of your president's murder. And nobody will interview me. Mm-hmm. Isn't that interesting?
Hugh, this is starting to run pretty long here. And I definitely want
Well, another psychiatrist tried to murder me. So after Pasternak failed, a psychiatrist by the name of Meyer did the same thing and tried to poison me. And he wasn't my doctor or my psychiatrist. And then I had those 2 murder cases, and the police in Oakland County and in Royal Oak and Beaumont Hospital, they destroyed all my records in a murder case, and it was my own murder. Mm-hmm. So that's the type of cooperation. That's the type of cooperation I get in Michigan, in Oakland, Macomb, and Wayne counties.
Yeah.
As they hide the truth of who really killed your president.
Yeah, there's no reason for anybody to say things like, why doesn't he report it to the police? Well, that's why.
I've reported it to the FBI. FBI hangs up on me when I call them about dead kids carried across state lines, and I have witnesses to that. Greg.
Absolutely.
And it's what's going on in our country is it's genocide, and none of you are free. You have an illusion of freedom, mm-hmm. and you're not free. And their grip on you is getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and I'm going to die soon. And that's why I'm making these videos with you. And you want to go. So Pasternak and Meyer both were not my doctors, but both were psychiatrists and tried to murder me as they built a mental hospital for me in a state on the other side of the country after they murdered JFK. And I'm the truth of his murder. All right.
That's all
I wanted to say in this episode.
That's a lot to say, and it's not even, folks. It's not even what he hasn't even told me the major con that he's going to reveal, especially in the 3rd episode. So stay tuned for the next couple weeks as Hugh brings you some more information. And there is so much more. You think this is a lot, but it's not. His life's so long, and there's just so much to it. There's going to be just unbelievable more things that you haven't heard yet. And you have to go back and you have to take this and you got to get a piece of paper and you have to do what I did. Okay. And I've written this down, but the whole reason that I can talk to him about it, okay, is besides what I was just writing today so that I can make sure I'm following along in the conversation today, I have a couple hundred other pages of notes. And if you're going to understand stuff like this and you've been sheltered like I have, you're going to have to take some notes. You can't just expect all this to just stay in your head. You got to study it. And to be a real truther, not an Alex Jones or, not the guy in Minnesota, if you're going to be a real truther or an actual truther, somebody who really actually tells the truth and doesn't disinformation and cover up the truth, here it is. Take it and run with this real truth and help redeem this country and help us all get out of this muck and overturn this disaster that we're living in right now. So I think we'll just stop it there.
It just blows my mind that Victoria, who was my wife on 9/11, is 9/11. And when you put all 4 of my murdered, dismembered, and raped wives together, and murdered over a 35-year period. They also are 9/11 in your calculator. And then it really blows my mind to see Tom Garrett is my double as he murders my lawyer and my wife and hands me Clinton's emails on FBI servers at my eBay business, out of his White House office as he was White House journalist for CBS. And then when they murdered my wife, they put him on a show called The Takeout.
Well, the whole news is
Tom Garrett.
Entire story.
That's something, Tom Garrett. You gay person, you gay major, and you know you're gay. You take care, Greg.
All right. One to hear.